Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo
Om Namo
Bhagavate
Bhagavate
Vasudevaya.
Vasudevaya.
So we're reading from Isopanisads, and this is mantra 14. So we'll just share the screen. And we'll go to the top. Where we did last week. So we should just go through it again. Intro of the Vedas, that's what we're reading from, a Vedic scripture. Then what the absolute truth is, the qualities of the absolute truth that's the subject matter of the Vedas. And then 1, 2, and 3 is that, the absolute truth is a person, it's Krishna, and he's the owner of everything, so we should use everything in his service, and the consequences of not doing that and the benefits of doing that. So then, the vision of a Maha Bhagavat, that's a person who's on the topmost platform, Uttamadhikari, how he sees the Lord, he sees how he works in this world, he explains how we can see him, and the living entities, relationship with him also are explained. And results of actually learning how to see him in creation. And then the absolute truth and relative truth. That's the 9 to 10. So that's, in relation to knowledge, the difference between knowledge and ignorance, and the application of both knowledge and ignorance to actually understand how to go forward in our spiritual life. And then 12 to 13 and 14 is about, the worship, different kinds of worship in the different modes. I worship other demigods, and they are not supreme. But worship of the supreme, the Sambhutim, is Krishna. So we don't worship the Asambhutim, the temporary. This is a different result. We worship the Sambhutim, the Supreme Lord. And if we learn how to see the difference between the two, then we can actually make progress again, achieve deathlessness. So we have to understand this material world. We have to understand the spiritual world. We have to understand what not to worship and what to worship. So we're on to 14 now. So we'll hear about this, combining worship of the Sambhutim and worship of the Asambhutim, or the temporary deities. So we'll just go to 14. Here we are. We're doing mantras. Well, we're not. We're doing this one. Yeah, last week we did the second part. First week was 12, which was of this section, about worship. 12 was explaining about the wrong type of worship, worshipping the demigods or impersonal Brahman. All these things are just temporary. Impersonal Brahman's eternal, but we can't maintain worship of something impersonal. We're persons, so we need to actually have a reciprocation with something personal. And then 13, which was last week, real knowledge, it's obtained from approaching a spiritual master. In 9, 10, and 11, when it was talking about different types of knowledge, for the middle section, for 11, it's 10, sorry, it spoke about the Dhira and Adhira, remember? Dhira is a person who's sober due to knowledge. Adhira is one who's not sober due to ignorance. Well, now it says that not just a Dhira and an Adhira, talks about we should worship, or we should hear from a spiritual master, one who's fixed in devotional service. Okay? So if you learn these two things together, this is what this verse is saying, we can differentiate between proper worship and improper worship. That might seem obvious to us because we're practicing, but people are worshipping for so many reasons, and they're not. Sometimes you think they're worshipping correctly, but they're not. So it takes a little bit of intelligence and explanation, which this particular mantra does. Okay, so maybe would Don want to start off?
Yeah. Sambutin cha vinasam cha yastarverubhayam saha vinashena mrityum titva sambutyam ritam asmute. One should know perfectly the personality of Godhead and his transcendental name, as well as the temporary material creation with its temporary demigods, men, and animals. When one knows these, he surpasses death in the ephemeral cosmic manifestation with it, and in the eternal kingdom of God, he enjoys his eternal life of bliss and knowledge. By its so-called advancement of knowledge, human civilization has created many material things, including spaceships and atomic energy. Yet it has failed to create freedom from birth, old age, disease, and death. Whenever an intelligent man raises the question of these miseries before a so-called scientist, the scientist very cleverly replies that material science is progressing and that it will ultimately be possible to render man deathless and ageless. Such answers prove the scientist's gross ignorance of material nature. In material nature, everything is under the stringent laws of matter and must pass through 6 stages of transformation: birth, growth, maintenance, transformation, deterioration, and finally death. Nothing that is in contact with material nature can be beyond these 6 laws of transformation. Therefore, no one, whether demigod, man, animal, or tree, can survive forever in the material world.
Okay, so Omeganti Mirandasya Yananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Melitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this particular section, the first half of this report, is quite making it quite obvious that everything is temporary. And we tend to think the natural condition of a thing is happen to be healthy, right? Is that right? Because that's a comfortable condition. But actually this world's it's not meant for comfort, it's an uncomfortable place because everything in its natural condition, it decays. The material body decays. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust, they say, don't they? So, we have a body which has got, there's a story of Puranjana. Did I mention this last week? No? Okay. Well, Puranjana was a fictitious character, fictitious king. And Narada Muni was speaking about his life to a real king because he couldn't speak directly to him because his false ego was too big. He would have been insulted. And so he was talking about this fictitious king, and it came to the time when, in the body is a life force. It's called a serpent of life. He says, when the life force becomes weak, he says, then all the soldiers of Kalyavana, they attack the body. There's 360 in the day and 360 at night. So that's a day, isn't it? He says, and all these diseases are already there. And the only thing that's holding them off is because the life force is strong in the body. And the body's, maintaining them or keeping them at a distance. So that's the reality of this world, everything's like that. just to stay in it, we have to be, make work so hard. So we shouldn't think that, that it's a healthy place. That it's not. It's exactly the opposite. We're fighting off time. We're fighting off the elements all the time. And these are unseen enemies in the form of different diseases. Okay. So we'll change to Sita Thakurani, Mataji.
The duration of life varies according to species. Lord Brahma, the chief living being within the material universe, lives for millions and millions of years, while a minute germ lives for some hours only. But no one in the material world can survive eternally. Things are born or created under certain conditions. They stay for some time, and if they continue to live, they grow, procreate, gradually dwindle, and finally vanish. According to these laws, even the Brahmas, of which there are millions in different universes, are all liable to death either today or tomorrow. Therefore, the entire material universe is called Matyaloka, the place of death. Material
Yeah.
science.
Go on, you can do it. Carry on.
Material scientists and politicians are trying to make this place deathless because they have no information of the deathless spiritual nature. This is due to their ignorance of the Vedic literature, which contains full knowledge confirmed by mature transcendental experience. Unfortunately, modern man is averse to receiving knowledge from the Vedas, Puranas, and other scriptures.
Okay. Jai Krishna Prabhu, do you want to read?
Yeah. Shall I read the thing from the Vishnu Purana out?
I'll read the Sanskrit if you want.
Yeah, go on then.
From the Vishnu
You
Purana,
read it.
761, we received the following information. Vishnu Shakti Para Prapta Sheshagnakya Tata Para Avidya Karma Samyagya Pritiya Shakti Ishyate.
Lord Vishnu, the personality of Godhead, possesses different energies known as para, superior, and apara, inferior. The living entities belong to the superior energy. The material energy in which we are presently entangled is the inferior energy. The material creation is made possible by this energy, which covers the living entities with ignorance, avidya, and induces them to perform fruitive activity. Yet there is another part of the Lord's superior energy that is different, both the material, inferior energy, and the living entities. That superior energy constitutes the eternal, deathless abode of the Lord. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 8:20. Paras tadmat tu bhavonyo vyakto vyaktat sanatana yah saveshu bhuteshu nasyatsu na vinasyati. All the material planets, upper, lower, and intermediate, including the Sun, Moon, and Venus, are scattered throughout the universe. These planets exist only during the lifetime of Brahma. Some lower planets, however, are vanquished after the end of one day of Brahma and are again created during the next day of Brahma. On the upper planets, time is calculated differently. One of our years is equal to only 24 hours, or 1 day and night. On many of the upper planets, the 4 ages of Earth, Satya, Treta, Dvapara, and Kali, last only 12,000 years, according to the time scale of the upper planet. Such a length of time, multiplied by 1,000, constitutes 1 day of Brahma, and 1 night of Brahma is the same. Such days and nights accumulate to months and years, and Brahma lives for 100 such years. At the end of Brahma's life, the complete universal manifestation is vanquished.
Oh, that's a long time. 311 trillion years. So we can't really comprehend that length of time. So, it's like a little firefly. It's born in the evening, and it lasts all night. Then it dies in the morning. But for him, that's a full lifetime. It feels like the same as our life, but it's insignificant compared to our lifespan. And so the demigods, when it talks about these years we're talking about, one day on the demigod planet is like at 6 months on our planet. So 182, is it? 182 times, their years 182 times longer than ours. And then we start calculating according to what we've just read. Okay, so Andy, would you like to read?
Those living beings who reside on higher planets like the sun and the moon, as well as those on the Martiloka, this Earth planet, and also those who live on lower planets, all are merged into the waters of devastation during the night of Brahma. During this time, no living beings or species remain manifest. Although spiritual, they continue to exist. This unmanifested stage is called avyakta. Again, when the entire universe is vanquished at the end of Brahma's lifetime, there is another avyakta state. But beyond these two unmanifested states is another unmanifested state, the spiritual atmosphere or nature. There are a great number of spiritual planets in this atmosphere, and these planets exist externally even when all the planets within this material universe are vanquished at the end of the Brahma's life. There are many material universes, each under the jurisdiction of a Brahma, and this cosmic manifestation within the jurisdiction of the various Brahmas is but a display of 1/4 of the energy of the Lord. Ikapad Vibhuti, this is the inferior energy. Behind the jurisdiction of Brahma is the spiritual nature, which is called Tripad Vibhuti, 3/4 of the Lord's energy. This is superior energy, or Prakriti.
Prakriti, with a dot, when you put a dot under the R, it's Re.
Right.
When you say Brahma, it's Brahma, a long dash over the A, so it's, and the A without a dash is like a short A.
Yeah. Brahma.
It's good practice. Takes a lot of practice, actually. Okay.
Continue.
So we'll let somebody else read. We can come around a second time. Jack, Prabhu.
Yes. The predominating spiritual person residing within the spiritual nature is Lord Sri Krishna. As confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita, he can be approached only by unalloyed devotional service and not by the process of jnana, philosophy, yoga, mysticism, or karma, fruitive work. The karmis or fruitive workers can elevate themselves to the Svargaloka planets, which include the sun, the moon. Jnanis and yogis can attain still higher planets such as Mahaloka, Tapaloka, and Brahmaloka. And when they become still more qualified through devotional service, they can enter into the spiritual nature, either the illuminating cosmic atmosphere or the spiritual sky, Brahman, or the Vaikuntha planets, according to their qualification. It is certain, however, that one can enter into the spiritual Vaikuntha planets without being trained in devotional service.
Yeah, so that's the difference between all the processes, is that devotional service is a personal process. It's the first time a person can understand that there's actually a supreme personality of Godhead, and therefore we can develop a relationship with him. So we can't force that relationship. We have to be introduced. Like in this world, if we're usually introduced, maybe not so formally, but through other people, we actually develop a relationship with their friends. Is that right? They'll say, "Oh, this is so and so," and then another relationship develops. So generally, in devotional service, that's the difference between other processes, that we can't understand by theoretical knowledge. We have to understand by our devotional attitude. And this next section talks about Bhava Rog. I've already spoke about it. Bhava means in this thing it means like mellow or taste. So in this particular, Bhava Rog means material disease, or the effects of a material disease. And that's what we're suffering. We're suffering from Bhava Rog. So we'll hear a little bit about that in this next section. So maybe Maya Pureshwari would like to read.
I'm not reading tonight, Maharaj. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh. Vibhu, bro.
Yes, Maharaj. On the material planets, everyone from Brahma down to the ant is trying to lord it over material nature. And this is the material disease. As long as this material disease continues, the living entity has to undergo the process of bodily change. Whether he takes the form of a man, demigod, or animal, he ultimately has to endure an unmanifested condition during the two devastations: the devastations during the night of Brahma and the devastation at the end of Brahma's life. If we want to put an end to this process of repeated birth and death, as well as the concomitant factors of old age and disease, we must try to enter the spiritual planets, where we can live eternally in the association of Lord Krishna or his plenary expansions, his Narayan forms. Lord Krishna or his plenary expansions dominate every one of these innumerable planets, a fact confirmed in the Shruti mantras. Eko Vashi Sarvagha Krishna Idya. Eko Pi San Bahuda Yo Vabhati.
Okay. Who's next? Sanjay, is it? Sandhya. Is anybody there?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, I don't have this material. Are you reading from the Veda-based Isopanisad? Is that where you're reading this from?
Yeah.
Prabhuji, could you please tell me which verse are we reading? Because I think I've got the Sri Isopanishads that I've opened from the Veda-base, but I didn't know what number
Okay,
you're
I'll come
reading.
back. It's verse 14, and we're halfway through it. So while you're trying to find it, we'll let somebody else read it, okay?
Okay, Prabhuji. That's fine, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Sandeep, bro.
There's a link in the chat. If you go to the chat, there's the link for the chapter.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes, Prabhuji. No one can dominate Krishna. It is the conditioned soul who tries to dominate material nature and is instead subjected to the laws of material nature and the suffering of repeated birth and death. The Lord comes here to re-establish the principles of religion, and the basic principle is the development of an attitude of surrender to Him. This is the Lord's last instruction in the Bhagavad Gita 18.66 Sarva Dharma Pratyajya Mam Ekam Saranam Vraja. Give up all other processes and just surrender unto me alone. Unfortunately, foolish men have misinterpreted this prime teaching and misled the masses of people in diverse ways. People have been urged to open hospitals but not to educate themselves to enter into the spiritual kingdom by devotional service. They have been taught to take interest only in the temporary relief work, which can never bring real happiness to the living entity. They start varieties of people, public and semi-government institutions to tackle the devastating power of nature, but they don't know how to pacify insurmountable nature. Many men are advertised as great scholars of Bhagavad Gita, but they overlook the Gita's message by which material nature can be pacified. Powerful nature can be pacified only by the awakening of God consciousness. As clearly pointed out in the Bhagavad Gita 7.14, in this mantra, Sri Upanishad teaches that one must perfectly know both Sambhuti, the personality of Godhead, and Vinasa, the temporary material manifestation, side by side. By knowing the material manifestation alone, one cannot be saved, for in the course of nature there is a devastation at every moment. Ahani, ahani, bhutani, gachantita, yama, layam. Nor can one be saved from these devastations by the opening of hospitals. One can be saved only by complete knowledge of the eternal life of bliss and awareness. The whole Vedic scheme is meant to educate men in this art of attaining eternal life. People are often misguided by temporary attractive things based on sense gratification, but service rendered to the sense object is both misleading and degrading. We must therefore save ourselves and our fellow men in the right way. There is no question of liking and disliking the truth. It is there. If we want to be saved from the repeated birth and death, we must take to the devotional service of the Lord. There can be no compromise, for this is matter of necessity.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, it's not just a duty for us to take it up, but the thing is making the last paragraph is that we have to actually distribute this knowledge. That's our obligation. We're receiving this knowledge. So if we're actually, a respectable person, we won't keep it for ourselves. We'll give it to others also. If we have something valuable, especially something as valuable as this. That's why it pleases Krishna so much if we actually try to enlighten others. In Bhagavad Gita, this is one of the last verses. Krishna says, there's nobody more dear to me than one who gives this knowledge to others. And there never ever will be one more dear, because it's such a, it's such a benediction that we have actually. To be the one who actually gives a person a chance to get out of this material world after millions of births, So it's not a small responsibility. Okay, so now we're going on to a new section which talks about the, we're glorifying and asking for protection of the Supreme Lord from 15 to 18. So if Mayapura Chandra, I can't, Chandra Daya.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Hiranmayena Patrena satyasya pihita mukam tat tvam pushan apa vrinu satya dharmaya drishtaye. O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. Purport. In the Bhagavad Gita 14.27, the Lord explains his personal rays, Brahma Jyoti, the dazzling effulgence of his personal form in this way. Brahmano hripatishtaham amritasya vyasya cha shashvatasya cha dharmasya sukasya kantikasya cha. I am the basis of the impersonal Brahman, which is immortal, imperishable, and eternal, and is the constitutional position of ultimate happiness. Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan are three aspects of the same absolute truth. Brahman is the aspect most easily perceived by the beginner. Paramatma, the super soul, is realized by those who have further progressed. And Bhagavan, realization is the ultimate realization of the absolute truth. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 7.7, where Lord Krishna says that he is the ultimate concept of the absolute truth, Matah. Therefore, Krishna is the source of the Brahma Jyoti, as well as the all-pervading Paramatma. Shall I end here?
Yeah, okay. Okay, so first Paramatma realization, and then Bhagavan realization, Paramatma in the heart, and then the person himself who Paramatma is an expansion who dwells in every atom. It's actually one. We see many Paramatmas when it's actually in the diagram, just to give us, so we can understand. But actually, it's one Paramatma who's in everybody's heart, and that is an expansion of Krishna. And for a devotee who's engaged in devotional service, that Paramatma becomes actually Bhagavan. For a jnani, it's the super soul. But one who's engaged in devotional activities, it becomes a deity which he mostly worships, Bhagavan. So it's more personal. Krishna's personally given us direction. He says in Bhagavad Gita 10, 12 to 13. There's a nice section there. It says that, no, it's not, it's 11 actually, 10, 11. It says Krishna's dwelling in the heart, and with the shining lamp of knowledge, he actually illuminates the heart with knowledge. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that it's not the Paramatma or any other space, it's the personal form of Krishna, the original form of Krishna who enters the heart and purifies us so we can understand. And of course, like we said earlier, that's dependent on how much we want to understand. And how much we want to understand depends on how much we're prepared to actually sacrifice to please him, like any other relationship. Okay. We've not read yet. It's Sandhya. Have you read?
No problem.
Okay.
Okay, so later in the Bhagavad Gita 10.42, Krishna further explains, Atha va bahu nayatena kim nyantena tavarjuna vistapayam idam krishnam eka sena shito jagat. But what need is there, Arjun, for all this detailed knowledge. With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. Thus, by his one planary expansion, the all-pervading Paramatma, the Lord maintains the complete material cosmic creation. He also maintains all manifestations in the spiritual world. Therefore, in this Shruti mantra of Sri Isopanisad, the Lord is addressed as Pusan, the ultimate maintainer.
Have I missed it? Where are we? So I'll find it.
Page 93, the second chat, the second bit.
Yeah, that's where I'm looking. I can't catch up where we are.
The next line starts the personality of Godhead Sri
Okay,
Krishna.
I've got it. I'm with you. There you are.
Okay, so the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is always filled with transcendental bliss. Ananda Mayo Bhasyat. When he was present in Vrindavan in India 5,000 years ago, he always remained in transcendental bliss, even from the beginning of his childhood pastimes. The killings of various demons such as Aga, Baka, Putana, and Pralamba were but pleasure excursions for him. In his village of Vrindavan, he enjoyed himself with his mother, brother, and friends, and when he played the role of a naughty butter thief, all his associates enjoyed celestial bliss by his stealing. The Lord's fame as a butter thief is not reproachable, but for by stealing butter, the Lord gave pleasure to his pure devotees. Everything the Lord did in Vrindavan was for the pleasure of his associates there. The Lord created these pastimes to attract the dry speculators and the acrobats of the so-called Hatha Yoga system who wish to find the absolute truth.
Okay. I like that word acrobat. Prabhupada's got a real sense of humour, hasn't he? Because, yogis are seen to, sometimes put the leg behind the neck. You know what I mean? So he's referring to them as acrobats. Anyway. Okay, so who's not Sandeep? Have you read? I don't think you have, maybe.
Yes, Prabhu, you have read already. If you want, I can
so
read
we'll
again.
go back to the beginning then. And that's Don.
Right.
So,
Of the childhood play between the Lord and his playmates, the cowherd boys, Shukadeva Goswami said in Srimad Bhagavatam, Itam satam brahma sukamja dasyam ratanam paradevatena mayashvikanam naradarakena sakam vijahari krita punya punja. The personality of Godhead, who is perceived as the impersonal, blissful Brahman, who is worshipped as the Supreme Lord by the devotees, and who is considered an ordinary human being by the mundane, played with the cowherd boys who had attained their position after accumulating many pious activities. 10, 12, 11. Thus the Lord is always engaged in transcendental loving activities with his spiritual associates in the various relationships of Shanta, neutrality, Dasya, servitorship, Sakya, friendship, Vatsalya, paternal affection, and Madhurya, conjugal love. Since it is said the Lord never leaves Vrindavan Dham, one may ask how he manages the affairs of creation. This is answered in Bhagavad Gita 13:14. The Lord pervades the entire material creation by his plenary part known as the Purusha incarnation. Although the Lord personally has nothing to do with material creation, maintenance, and destruction, he causes all these things to be done by his plenary expansion, the Paramatma or Super Soul. Every living entity is known as Atma, soul, and the principal Atma who controls them all is Paramatma, the Super Soul.
Okay. Thank you. So in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna makes that point that many people can understand there's a soul, but they don't understand that there's two souls in the body, like two birds in a tree. And one is the eating bird who's trying to enjoy, that's us, and the witnessing bird, which is the Paramatma. So Upadrashta Anumantari sees and he benedicts. He gives us the ability to do it if we actually. He's got the what is it? The permitter and overseer. He oversees and permits. Without his sanction, we can't do anything. And in India, they have these parrots. Did I tell you last time? These blue, red, and green. They are. In the old Bhagavad Gita, they had these two parrots in a tree, blue, red, and green. And I thought, oh, they're nice colours. Whoever painted this, they actually did a good job. I never thought that they actually parrots they existed like that. But when I went to India, I was on a rooftop in the where I was staying, and I saw them exactly as it's in the Bhagavad Gita, and there's two parrots. So it's bona fide. Okay, Mataji.
Sorry.
The system.
Yeah, this is. Oh, sorry, I'm lost. So, can I go on? Okay. The system of God realization is a great science. The materialists can only analyze and meditate on the 24 factors of the material creation, but they have very little information of the Purusha, the Lord. The impersonal transcendentalists are simply bewildered by the glaring effulgence of the Brahma Jyoti. If one wants to see the absolute truth in full, he has to penetrate beyond the 24 material elements and the glaring effulgence as well. Sri Isopanisad points towards this direction, praying for the removal of the Hiranyamaya Patra, the dazzling covering. Unless this covering is removed, so one can perceive the personality of Godhead as he is, factual realization of the absolute truth can never be attained. The Paramatma feature of the personality of Godhead is one of three plenary expansions collectively called Vishnu Tattva. The Vishnu Tattva within the universe, one of the three principal deities, Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, is known as the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. He is all-pervading Paramatma in each and every individual living entity. The Garbhodakshaya Vishnu is the collective supersoul within all living entities. Beyond this too is the Karanodakshaya Vishnu, lying in the causal ocean. He is the creator of all universes. The yoga system teaches the serious student to meet the Vishnu Tattvas after overcoming the 24 material elements of the cosmic creation. The culture of empiric philosophy helps one realize the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, which is the glaring effulgence of the transcendental body of Lord Sri Krishna. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 14:27, as well as Brahma Samhita 5:40.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so three Vishnus. It's like, hasn't you seen those dolls with you put them inside one another? You get them in Russia. There's a little one inside, then there's the next one, then the next one around that. So it's like that, one expansion is coming from another. But it's they're all expansions of Krishna doing the same work as Super Soul. One's a Super Soul within every atom and within our hearts. And then one's a Super Soul of this universe. This universe can't function without Krishna's energy, Krishna's power. So he's the Super Soul of the universe. Then Karanodakshaya Vishnu, that's Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And then Karanodakshaya Vishnu is the Super Soul of the whole material creation. So, nothing will work without Krishna's energy being, to stimulate it. Just like this body is not stimulated without the individual soul. Yeah. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Kotesha Asesha Vishtati Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahmanishklamananta Asesha Bhutam Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Vajami. So maybe was not ready yet, Mataji. What, she's still here. Sandhya, is it?
Prabhuji, yes. Prabhuji, I've lost the para. Does it start from this system of God realization is a great science? Is this where I'm reading from?
No. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Let Jai Krishna read.
Okay, Prabhuji. Sorry, because I've got it on my mobile, so I keep getting lost in between.
Okay.
In the millions and millions of universes, there are innumerable planets, and each and every one of them is different from the other by its cosmic constitution. All of these planets are situated in a corner of the Brahma Jyotir. Brahma Jyotir is but the personal rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, whom I worship. This mantra from the Brahma Samhita is spoken from the platform of factual realization, the absolute truth, and the Shruti mantra, Sri Isopanisad, and the discussion confirms this mantra as a process of realization. The Isopanisad mantra is a simple prayer to the Lord to remove the Brahma Jyotir so that one can see his real face. This Brahma Jyotir effulgence is described in detail in several mantras of the Mundaka Upanishad. Do you want to read all these, Maharaj? There's loads of them.
I can if you don't want. Hiranmaya Trena, Hiranmaya Pare Koshe. I'll put my glasses on just a minute. Here we are. Hiranmaya Patra Koshe, Virajam Brahmanishkalam, Pachchutgram, Jyotisham Biotis, Yad Atad Yad Atma Vido Vidahu, Atatra Suryo Bhati, Atatra Suri Bhutina Chandatarakam, Nema Vidyot To, Banti Puto Yam Agnihi, Tam Eva Bantam Anubhati Sarvam, Tasya Pasha Sarvam Idam Vibhati, Tame Vedam Amritam Purushtad Brahma, Paschad Brahma Dakshinatash Chutarina, Adaschadvam Cha Prashritam Brahmai Vedam Vishvam Idam Parishtam.
In the spiritual realm beyond the material covering is the unlimited Brahman effulgence, which is free from material contamination. That effulgent white light is understood by transcendentalists to be the light of all light. In that realm, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity for illumination. Indeed, whatever illumination appears in the material world is only a reflection of that supreme illumination. That Brahman is in front and in back, in the north, south, east, and west, and also overhead and below. In other words, that supreme Brahman, effulgent, spreads throughout both the material and spiritual skies.
Yeah, just like the sunshine, Ekadesha Stitasyagnya. So that's how fire in one place spreads its light everywhere. Jatsta Vistarinitata. So similarly, the light of this Brahman is actually spread throughout the whole universe. Okay, Andy, do you want to read?
Perfect knowledge means knowing Krishna at the root of this Brahman effulgence. This knowledge can be gained from such scriptures as Srimad Bhagavatam, which perfectly elaborates the science of Krishna. In Srimad Bhagavatam, the author, Srila Vyasadeva, has established that one will describe the supreme truth as Brahman, Paramatma or Bhagavan, according to one's realization of him. Srila Vyasadeva never states that the supreme truth is a jiva, an ordinary living entity. The living entity should never be considered the all-powerful supreme truth. If he were the supreme, he would not need to pray to the Lord to remove his dazzling cover so that the living entity could see his real face.
Okay. So, who's next?
Should I read, Prabhuji?
If you've got the place, yeah.
Okay, Prabhuji. The conclusion is that one who has no knowledge of the potencies of the Supreme Truth will realize the impersonal Brahman.
Where are
Similarly,
you reading from?
I thought this is where we just ended, Prabhuji. Dazzling cover so that the living entity could see his real face.
No,
So the last is the conclusion.
you
It
haven't
starts
got it.
with,
It's the wrong one, I think.
oh, is it, Prabhuji?
Anyway, it's okay. Next time you can get it right.
I think that's the right one, Maharaj.
Eh?
I think that is the right one.
It says perfect knowledge means knowing Krishna as the fruit of this Brahman. Is that right?
We just read that one before.
Yeah.
Oh, the conclusion is right. Okay.
Yeah.
Carry
Okay.
on.
Okay, Prabhuji, the conclusion is that one who has no knowledge of the potencies of the Supreme Truth will realize the impersonal Brahman. Similarly, when one realizes the material potencies of the Lord, but has little or no information of the spiritual potencies, he attains Paramatma realization. Thus, both Brahman and Paramatma realization of the Absolute Truth are partial realizations. However, when one realizes the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, in full potency after the removal of the Hiranmaya Patra, one realizes Vasudeva Sarvam Iti. Lord Sri Krishna, who is known as Vasudeva, is everything, Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. He is Bhagavan, the root, and Brahman and Paramatma are his branches.
Okay. That's it, everybody. Next one.
Should I continue, Prabhuji?
Vibhu, would you? Yeah, let Vibhu read now.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Are you reading? I can't hear anything.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Done now.
Okay, great. In the Bhagavad Gita 6.4647, there is a comparative analysis of three types of transcendentalists: the worshippers of the impersonal Brahman, Gyanis, the worshippers of the Paramatma feature, Yogis, and the devotee of Lord Shri Krishna, Bhaktas. It is stated there that the Gyanis, those who have cultivated Vedic knowledge, are better than ordinary fruitive workers, that the yogis are still greater than the Gyanis, and that among all yogis, those who constantly serve the Lord with all their energies are the topmost. In summary, a philosopher is better than a laboring man, a mystic is superior to a philosopher, and all of the mystic yogis, he who follows bhakti yoga, constantly engaging in the service of Lord, is the highest. Sri Isha Upanishad direct us towards this perfection.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of this section. Next week we'll start on 16. So has anybody got any comments or questions before we wrap up? Isopanisad is very straightforward, but it's important, like we said at the beginning, because it's explaining how the absolute truth is a person and all the reasoning behind that, which we can use to solidify our own faith. And not only that, to actually give faith to others and defeat impersonalist arguments, which are very prominent nowadays. I was talking to one person in the street, actually, day before yesterday. Sunday, that's right. Oh, it was yesterday, actually. And he was actually listening to some tapes on Bhagavad Gita. And I could tell by the way we were talking, they were listening to an impersonalist. And then he actually admitted it. And so I just in Bhagavad Gita, in the second chapter, verses 12 and 13 in the purport, it particularly deals with impersonalism in such a nice way that, you can't avoid accepting that the absolute truth by logic is a person. So we need to be able to explain these things to people, because he actually took a Bhagavad Gita as it is. That's Prabhupada's book. But it's important to get these grassroots. Okay, everybody, thank you for joining, and hope to see you next week.
Thank you, Maharaj.
You,
Thank you,
Maharaj.
Maharaj.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you,
Hare
Maharaj.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
How do I switch off now?
I'll do it, don't worry.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna.